sorry that I ever doubted this book. I in love with the second part, with the 11th floor. Just giving us all of that information that answers the mystery that we've been waiting for. And, you know, it was one of the paths that the evidence was driving us towards, but there were so many other paths that it could have taken as well, that I'm just so happy that we finally get to know the actual reasoning behind this. But anyway, we got to talk about it. And I'm going to be honest, I don't really know how to talk about it, so I'm just going to start and we'll see where it goes, and it might become a mess, but chaotic messes are my jam. And this series is one big chaotic mess, and it's just perfect. So let's go. And we start things off with that interlude from Quasar. We find out that Victory was the judge when he sued the law school to be able for him as a Nullian to get in and study law. That it was Victory who decided that he could do it. Yes, that just makes me remember that scene where he's cheering behind Victory, trying to get Carl and Donut to choose her to be their adjutant. Like, But while he's waiting to have that conversation with Carl between floors, his niece calls, scared for her life because those assassins that Chandra hired at the beginning of the book are now there, trying to find Quasar. But thankfully he got her an illegal blaster previously and she used it to shoot them, so that's great. And now Quasar is getting his best friend Kiki, whose family is the mob, to help him both legally and illegally. I really hope that this means that Donut is going to get Chandra's head as a hat in a prize box sometime soon. Because she didn't in this book. That was a little bit disappointing for me. But when Donut was talking to Chandra, she was trying to make her take a deal. And then Chandra got really scared all of a sudden. So I really hope that maybe that was a notification that her hired assassins got killed. Because I don't think that would be that fast that Kiki could get somebody there. But maybe she could. Maybe she could. I guess we'll find out next book. Carl also mentions that he's concerned for Quasar and his well-being. And from a man who started off the series saying that he hates drama, he's very invested in everybody else's. He has no other choice. This whole thing is drama and chaos, but I still really love that aspect of his character. We're also finding out that the one and only deal being offered to all crawlers, which was the same deal that they were offered at the end of the last floor, is 1 year as an indentured game guide, full medical, life stipend, gag order. And that sounds so much better than anything they've come across so far. But also, what does that even mean if the crawl is done? Will they just be in stasis forever? I don't know if it's a good deal or not. It doesn't sound like a good deal to me. But maybe it is. A better deal would have just been instant freedom. But can't have that. But anyway, that means that only 23 crawlers went on to the 11th floor. So there's no more leaderboard. The AI doesn't even care about listing their viewers or followers or any of that stuff anymore because it's everybody. Well, in the beginning of the series, it was made known to us that not a lot of crawlers ever got really deep and not many ever made it to the 11th or 12th floors. I still expected with this huge group that we would have a much larger crawler force in the Ascendancy. So this kind of puts it back on the original track of what we should have expected. But up until this point, my expectations were that they were just going to be like this huge mass of crawlers against these gods, which probably would have given them a huge advantage. So now it's not that. Now it's not going to be that. And before we get into the whole parade aspect, can we just talk about how Mordecai is an animistic spirit and trapped in the table? I know that this floor is only 3 hours long, but come on. We don't get any of his potions. We don't get him experimenting with his new table because they went down a floor. So his table went up. He also has a botany table now, so that would have went up a level. We get none of that. On top of the fact that they didn't even say goodbye to him on the last level. My heart, Katya and Mordecai were my two favorite. I was expecting Katya to not be in this book, but I wasn't expecting Mordecai to take such a huge back seat, and I think that was part of why I just felt like this book was so slow. minus the very emotional parts in there. I'm also still surprised that we haven't talked about Ruby leaving and how he feels about that. We haven't talked about how he felt about that rich asshole Jinx getting killed. And we still haven't discovered why they keep changing his form every single floor. Like, you'd think that, like, Tippett and Rosetta would have been able to explain something like that by now, or at least explain what would happen to him as a changeling when he left the dungeon. And now let's get to the actual parade. This part is just so perfect. The AI gets to talk about who he is, who they are, who the primals are, what a macro AI is. So the AI is in Grigory's, the Fleshmancer's body. So I'm going to say he when talking about the AI. So the AI is giving us this story, this background, the real version of the whole Scolopendra myth through this parade that he has created. It's on a yellow brick road, a la Wizard of Oz. And the road is lined with horribles. The crawlers all need to make floats that fit the 5 different themes that the AI is going to talk about. And those 5 themes are resolution, decision, betrayal, destruction, and vengeance. Turns out this entire time, the macro AI was not an artificial intelligence. It was an aggregate intelligence, an aggregate of the consciousnesses of primals. There was left of the primals, but they're residuals, but they're like a different branch of residual than Agatha is. And that the mantids pretty much were just taking a cup of water filled with not even like a whole individual primal, parts of different primals' consciousnesses, dumping it into a vessel, so think like the primal engine, and making these macro AIs and using it to create a dungeon and using it to feed the eulogist and apparently killing a lot of it. Right? Partial consciousnesses. And then right from the very beginning, we knew that once an AI is done with the crawl, they kind of trap it in its own little world that it could live out and be in control of. Which, no wonder why these AIs go insane as the crawl goes along, especially since in one of the epilogues, Agatha mentions, waking up the infant AI, the infant primal, and telling it what it is. So if these other residuals were waking them up and letting them know what they are, no wonder these AIs go insane during these crawls, because they're just pieces of individuals of a collective, not even whole individuals. They only have flashes of memory and kind of an inkling of what they are. So these horribles along this road, they don't really have a shape or a form. They're all wearing masks of NPCs. And at one point later on, Carl makes an observation that all of these NPCs, all of these mobs, are the AI. The AI controls them. The AI puts their personality into them. And so all of these parts of these individuals, of these primals, pre-collective, are these NPCs and mobs, and they're also getting slaughtered. So are those pieces of itself... Hi, baby! So these NPCs and these mobs are pieces of the AI, are pieces of this collective, and they're also getting killed. And once they're killed, are they gone? And that probably also contributes to the AI going insane, because it's literally losing bits of itself and its information. What the AI can recall is that they were once all individuals who decided, which we'll see in a second, to become a collective, to ascend physical form, and basically seeking immortality without asking the question of what happens next. And as we've seen throughout here, and I think I love this, because this is a question I've been asking throughout the book with all these tenors and these horrible deals, is, being immortal is not a benefit. The inability to die is a nightmare. The inability to die is a nightmare. So we see that throughout the dungeon with the tenors, and even Mordecai, who got it almost to the 12th floor. And now we're seeing this now with the 18th floor, and all of these guests being tortured and murdered over and over and over again, but they can't die. And so now these insane AIs are trapped in their own cycles for thousands of years. And he makes the observation that no matter what he does, no matter what they do, there's no coming back from what they've done. They can't get back into their bodies. They can't become primals again. They can't get out of this collective. Not only maybe because of the way they built their system, but also because the mantids just started scooping them up and using them, and I guess parts are getting killed off in the dungeon. How would they ever bring all those pieces together? Can they bring all those pieces together? Like they're feeding the eulogist. But if they put all those AIs back in, will some of those like different pieces of the consciousness come together into individuals? Probably not. It's probably just like this big soup of consciousnesses. And we also learn that the AI is talking to different AIs in The Tomb of the Gatekeeper, Donut's new book. The AI, which, by the way, that's going to be awesome on the next floor. But the AI talks about how gatekeeping, how the other AIs are just like, oh, you haven't been trapped for 20,000 cycles. Oh, you haven't finished a crawl yet. Oh, you haven't had 1 millisecond feel like an eternity. Which, again, really points out that, yeah, that all sucks. That's awful. That's torture. And they've been doing it for years, so that way the rich can live in comfort for an extended lifetime with special magical and medical abilities that the other people can't use. So the dungeons itself and all these seeded species aren't the only things that are being tortured. And it goes even deeper than that. Like, I just can't. There's so many layers. Okay, back to the parade and the themes. The resolution. Apparently the primals, who were individuals at first, not a collective, were diverse and hated each other because of their differences. They went to war over their differences. They were spreading across the galaxy to get away from each other and using up the universe's resources. And their resolution was to find a solution, that they couldn't keep doing this. And their decision was to sunset their civilization. Which, alright, that seems very extreme compared to, like, limiting the number of births. Which I know in the real world that is a touchy subject, and there's a lot of moral and ethical considerations when it comes to that itself. But I mean, that compared to, alright, everybody's gonna die, but, like, all of our consciousness is gonna be in one biological being. Anyway, if this took hundreds of years and they did a genetics program where everybody was born with the ability to be like connected and feel each other's feelings, which, right, earlier in the book it was discussed that these seeded species are the only species that can connect, like are born with the connection to the dungeon interface system. So, right? Seeded species are primals, sort of, but also how the rare elements are what's used to feed the eulogist. So does that mean all of the seeded species, all of the people who have been dying, have they been adding to the consciousness of the eulogist? Like, is Carl and everybody just destined to end up inside the eulogist as a collective consciousness? Are all of the people who are dying in these crawls just ending up back in the crawls as these NPCs and mobs? Anyway, like with anything like this, there were dissenters. There were people who were not on board with this. The AI itself is like, hey, eugenics program, which, so they ran away and they're hunted because, if some of them get away, then they're going to keep populating the world, and then it pretty much makes this big collective pointless. Great solution, guys. And with all of this biological engineering, we have the Apothecary who was born. So the Apothecary is a primal, one of the genetically modified primals, but she was born with the ability to meld into the whole. And she'd become the part of the resistance. So it's like the Apothecary versus the eulogist. Which makes me really want to go back and reread The Dungeon Anarchist, right? That's the one with the trains, and that's when we first really started to learn about the Plenty. And no, it was earlier than that, because we had the Krakarans in book 1, right? On floor 2. I just reread all of these in the last couple of months, and I don't. For the future, for the future. And also, how do you think the plenty reacted to this information? Because everybody was forced to watch this. Do you think they had another mini stampede of panic? Did they already know? Because this is their partner. And their partner was working with Carl and Donut. Were their sponsors? So excited. And so the Resistance made a plan. They called it a biological failsafe, where they spread seeds throughout the universe in case they all died. And it was a way to create sustainable habitats for when the experiment failed and the eulogists starved and died. So yeah, everything that I've been saying, them being so stupid and destroying these worlds that had oxygen and food and shelter just there for them. Like, it was the whole point of those was to be a sustainable failsafe. Idiots, all of them. So with this resistance and people deciding not to join the collective and running away came the betrayal. The people who were for the collective turned the eulogist into a weapon of mass destruction to force people to join the collective. Even people who were willing to join the collective after death felt betrayal by this and started to resist as well. And now there are more people who didn't want to join the collective than people who were for the collective. So, more war, which was the destruction. Float for everybody keeping track. And the resistance didn't quite get to finish creating all of those biological failsafes, so what the Syndicate found wasn't the completed project. And this is where the 9-tier attack myth started, with this whole genocide to finally finish the collective's experiment, to create that eulogist. There's also a security guard version of itself that will peel bits of itself off like Agatha, and those bits' main goal is to keep all biological life dead. The AI also describes that like the goal of the eulogist is to sleep and shrink until it becomes a singularity again. Which I don't understand. Like, is it supposed to like consolidate all of the consciousnesses and like keep the most important parts until like, I just don't understand what the point of collecting all of those consciousnesses. I'm probably saying that wrong. What the point of that was if the end goal is for it to shrink again. Couldn't they have just written some history books? I don't get it. Okay, anyway. I read a lot of fantasy, not a lot of sci-fi. I love sci-fi, but apparently not enough to understand what's going on right now. So as we know, the Apothecary survived. It apparently took the brunt of the eulogist's attack, so it could save all of these little seeds of life that was spread out. And it kind of cocooned itself for like 1,000 years. And when it emerged, it changed into a version of the thing it was fighting against, which to me is like, so right, the all tree, that white glowing all tree, and then the unwashed, the beautiful place, that dark, tentacly, upside down, like, you know, like I feel like those are the two pieces. So which one's the Apothecary and which one's the eulogist? We'd think that the Apothecary is the tree. But if we fast forward to the arena, which I'm not talking about yet, the Quasar Prime was on top of the tree. I don't know. And if the Apothecary could also like shed bits of itself like the eulogist does and like the eulogist's bodyguard does, what are those? Are those the primals that the kid inside of Lucia was talking about? Or was it Lucia was talking about how Cece and Gus, the residuals and the primals? Or was the primals the other AIs, the OIs, the outside intelligences? And then the AI makes a comment that the Syndicate is well on its way to repeating history with a much more diverse set of starter species, which again makes me feel like the seeded species are the original primal species. Anyway, the AI also talks about how the Mantids and the Syndicate kind of found these remnants of the primal civilization and started to just play with them, akin to going into an empty house and flipping a bunch of switches. And yes, they flipped the restart life switch, and they also flipped the self-destruct switch. Which, what is that? Where is that? How does the AI know what's happening? How long ago was it flipped? Was it just flipped for this season? Was it flipped back when they started the crawl all those years ago? Does it have to do with the eulogist and its feeding and its sleeping/waking? And the AI talks about how the mantids don't just create those macro AIs, taking bits and pieces of the past primal consciousnesses that cannot die, putting them into a system, putting them into for a crawl. That's not where it stops. They also just create them and then basically destroy them by throwing them into a star to incinerate them. And AI big mad blows up all of the mantids, or somehow ends all of mantid civilization. He says good riddance. No, he says good fucking riddance, which, yeah. But again, still not 100% sure why he's so mad at Carl and all of them for trying to fight against this system. Yes, if they're killing the mobs and the NPCs, technically they're killing pieces of him, of the AI, but again, it's not like they knew and it's not like they had a choice. And he's also not giving them a choice because he's literally putting them into situations where they must battle, like this whole race that just happened where they had to race all those NPCs and kill those, like the AI is the one setting that up. I don't know. And yeah, I haven't talked about the vengeance theme yet. That hasn't happened yet for the AI, but we'll back that up just a little bit and talk about El Amani, that group that worked together for the betrayal float. That was so good. It also connects really well with the Linus/Minus storyline from the last part of the book. How Linus had said that like he didn't really view them as real people until he saw how much they loved each other. And so their float is, TV screens and, you there watching it, all you people in our fan clubs, like you are a part of this, you are watching our apocalypse, like you are the problem. I think it's done very, very well. I really liked that. And then we get to Carl and Donut and Pony and Jurgen's float for vengeance. It is also so good. This is such a good section. So Pony is supposed to start with his speech. He has the Midnight Epicure behind him, the god where, the prey animals, the devoured, will then be the devourers. That the downtrodden will rise up and devour those that are reveling in the crawler's suffering. But instead, Pony has trained Sweetie to do the beat of In the Air Tonight by Phil Collins, and Pony sings the song he didn't get to sing in karaoke. And everybody loves it. He amazes them. I have no idea if he had potions or because he said he was practicing. Is that just his skill? He's better than Donut. I'm just so proud of him, and it just made my heart so happy in that one little moment that he got to sing his song. I hope that next floor people are kinder to him. And then Carl talks about the difference between revenge and vengeance. How do you get revenge against a generational system that has existed since before you were born? But he can get his vengeance. And then the sluggalos rain from the sky. The slugs came down and just murdered them all. And the way that Carl puts that, the smallest of us, the lowest of the mobs and NPCs slaughtered these rich, powerful people in control of this generational horror show. Unity, support, family, kneecapping bitches. So yeah, I'm really, really sorry that I was disliking this book up to this point. This makes it worth it. And then we finally get into the arena. The arena is supposed to represent the entire crawl, which I guess makes sense because there's a bunch of mobs, monsters, and then their replacements, their stand-ins from the rich and powerful. But also, all of the mobs and monsters were already killed, so these are just the avatars and the representatives for them. So again, more pieces of the AI, all in an arena to all slaughter each other. But before they enter the arena, Carl tells Princess Donut, not just Donut, that he loves her. And Donut is like, yeah, I love you too, but don't you go saying goodbye right now. Everybody, and it's true, everybody mentions that they don't know how Carl is going to react if Donut dies, but nobody asks how Donut is going to react if Carl dies. And that's a really good point. She is now that Lina isn't on the floor anymore, she's the most powerful of all of those crawlers. She has insane skills and weapons and armor. Elle herself even says that Donut is terrifying. So what is Donut gonna do if she loses Carl? Man, like, if we get, like, to the last book, and it's, like, the second to last book, Carl dies at the end, and then the last book is just all Donut's revenge. You know, the Oakfell living up to her name. But no. Matt Dinniman, no. My heart, no. No. But no, for real, do what you're mad. This is amazing, do what you're gonna do. Don't listen to me. But no. Oh, but speaking of the Oakfell and Mordecai's predictions with that, there's this one prediction, Donut's second prediction, that happened right after Donut put up the cleaner bot for sale that had Lee Na inside. And I'm just wondering, like, is Lee Na now a huge piece? And so Donut sending Lee Na down there kind of triggered something huge where the Oakfell is living up to her name. So in the arena is already Karen Prime, which the AI mentions that he wasn't going to bring her at all until he heard what Carl was planning and what somebody else was planning. Big question mark. Who else was planning what? Was it Samantha? Samantha mentioned a plan. But anyway, down to the final chaos moments of this floor, of this book, Carl says that they're done. They're not here to die on your terms anymore, that he's ending it here and now. So his first choice to bring into the arena isn't Emberus or Helic, like I thought. It's Scolopendra. It's the dungeon boss. The boss of the entire dungeon, of the 18th floor, of 7 floors higher than where he is right now. Well, didn't see that coming. And this whole cluster that happens with regards to Emberus, I'm not into it. This isn't this isn't how I wanted it to go. I'm kind of disappointed, honestly. I'm disappointed. It sounds like we're still going to get to figure out the whole gay run storyline, that whole mystery, the whole Apeto mystery. But I really did hope that it had something to do with Emberus. I have one hope that I'll get to later, but at this point, like, I don't think that's going to happen. So Carl chooses Scolopendra as a stand-in, gets Penny the pig, who he made sentient with a pet biscuit so he could be in his party, has the pig wearing the knee pads, goes inside the centipede to the club where everybody is hanging out, gets Kepri, the bug-headed god, who, when the patch and the knee pads are near, gets invulnerability. Like, I get that that was a whole big plan to save Donut, but why? If Donut had the knee pads on, it would work. And then if that didn't work, she had the cockroach ability. So that's like ×2 that she would have been protected. The only thing I could think of why Carl didn't want to follow through with that is from the very beginning of the book when the AI mentions, like, oh, we finally found your weakness. Or, oh, we finally confirmed your weakness. It's Donut. Donut is your weakness, Carl. And so maybe he thought that no matter what he did, the AI would find a loophole to kill Donut. So he wanted to make sure that she wasn't anywhere near it. So I'm not really into what happened with the whole Emberus storyline. I'm kind of really disappointed in it. I've made it clear by now that I love Emberus, and I think he's just a big softie trapped inside, you know, a rage beast of a god. Every time something happens, Samantha says something to him and he cries. He chases the puppy. You know, he's a little bit confused about his brother acting super nice. Like, I really thought that the way to go about this would be to get him, Helic, Eris, Tyrannus all together just to talk it out and figure out who was fucking with them. Because somebody is fucking with them. Whether it's some big storyline or, like, also, like, the AI in there, like, with the pig and Tyrannus, I think that was hinted at as it being, like, an AI thing. Anyway, besides all that, I'm disappointed in that. I'm so disappointed that Carl lied about it to get him to rage. Because the lie just hurts. Also, what is up with Carl leaving the religion? Didn't he have to pay off his loan first? Did he borrow that money from Pony? Did he pay it off a while ago? Like, I don't understand. Like, he's not allowed to leave his religion unless if he's paid off the loan. And then he gets a notification out the ring, and I wonder what that even means, because to a non-worshipper, it just looks like a regular ring. But once they put it on, it's like it's like a curse of every single debuff that was ever within 50 meters of the ring or something like that. So let's hope he doesn't mix that ring up in his inventory now that he is no longer a worshipper. Also, did he even really need to leave the religion if the plan was just to get him killed anyway? I'm not really sure about that whole cluster. It worked. It worked for him. I'm just disappointed in it. But yeah, I'm just really sad that in his last moments of his life, he was lied to about finally figuring out this whole mystery with his son's death. But Carl does find the Emberus memorial crystal, and since Samantha was talking about how Ysault's crystal needed to go on a plinth, and how they're talking about putting together Apito's memorial crystal to get her back, I'm wondering if Carl will bring back Emberus. And maybe they'll even find Gayron's memorial crystal and bring him back to... Can they just bring back all of the gods? And the reason why Carl wanted to make sure that Tyrannus was there is because he noticed a bunch of hints throughout the dungeon about Skalapendra's weakness being lightning. I did go back to the specific one he called out and look at the Thorn Room. The only one that I saw was with one shrine, not every shrine. But maybe I just misread that part, and it was all of the hints were about lightning, not all of the shrines were about lightning. But the one shrine said that if he fixed Shango's shrine, he would get a level 15 lightning spell that would have the ability to train up to level 20, which could come useful later. Hint, 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 hint. And I remember I had it highlighted when I went back to it. I just never connected it with Skalapendra. But Carl did. But turns out that doesn't matter anyway, because Carl gave it a pet biscuit. Carl gave the big, giant, boss dungeon centipede a pet biscuit. And it worked. And it worked because it works on any pet or animal class mob. I gotta say, I did love that. I did love that. And on top of that, Eris came in, fucked shit up, had everybody trade their inventory, so it was actually Donut who had to put the pet biscuit into the potion ball, and she put the wrong one in. She put the Paramore biscuit in, which means we have a new level 1 crawler, Sexy Skalapendra, who is in love with Carl. Thank goodness that there is an asterisk next to that incurable charm, because that must mean that it's somehow curable. I wonder what, race she's gonna pick. I wonder if she, she's level 1, and she gets intelligence commiserate with her original form? What kind of spell, does she still have all 9 the way it's written, she does still have all 9 tier attack, and what other spells and stuff does she have? She probably has the cockroach ability. But because she loves Carl, is she just going to help them beat everything on the way down? Hopefully that doesn't mean that she wins the ascendancy. I don't know though. I don't know. That's how I'm feeling about that. I am very interested to see where that goes. I have no clue right now what my theories are. I have to sit with that. I was not expecting that at all. So with this twist, they still need to get to the 18th floor in order to win. And that 18th floor exit is now open. But do they actually care about winning at this point? Are they just going to find the Pineapple Cabaret and exit that way? Are they going to find some other loophole exit? Especially since with the epilogue, we see that Louis is on the 15th floor, so he got to skip a floor, which isn't supposed to be allowed. So are they going to figure out something new like that? Or are they actually going to try to get down to and out the 18th floor? Also, we still have not used Kamaris. That's the summoning. It's a true summoning. And he's one of the 4 princes of Shield. He made the potion for Samantha to get pregnant. Are we going to summon him specifically to help with the whole Gay Run storyline, figuring out that mystery, figuring out the mystery with Samantha's daughter? Are we going to use him to help battle in the Ascendancy? Are we going to use him to help them get down to floors without actually having the floor collapse. Also, if his summoning time is for the remainder of the floor and none of the floors collapse, then his summoning time is infinite, right? It's until the dungeon collapses. So he could literally just be around for the whole time. And so if they could use him as an ally, like, that's a hugely powerful ally. And I just wonder where that whole storyline is going to go, because it does sound like he tricked Samantha. So he's not a good guy, so he wouldn't be an ally. I don't know. But I do feel like the dungeon programming, acting like the 15th floor doesn't exist, is going to be key. Juice boxes down there, that sounds like a key. And then are we going to get any more demon events? And if so, then can't they just be dragged down there but then keep escaping to the next levels? Oh, and then another thing that we learn is that even though Scolopendra is now a crawler, she can't be abandoned and she can't die, or else all of the attacks happen at once. And we learned this floor that safe rooms aren't safe from the attacks. Why? They're safe rooms. I don't understand how that's part of the rules. Unless there are just no rules about it because nobody has ever gotten that far. Or it's just meant to be like the end of all crawlers. So yeah, let the attacks be in the safe rooms. So towards the end, we also see that Carl got hit with a tracker from the Dread Kyriap, however you pronounce that, the being who was making those orange spider webs and flaying and torturing all of the guests in the club. But then that club was inside Scolopendra. And later we see with Victory's interlude that they did die, but they also ended up, being regenerated, and so they're probably in a different dimension. And so I hope and assume that that's still stuck in there, inside sexy Scolopendra. And so I wonder how it's gonna escape, if it's gonna end up hunting down Carl, if the quills that Carl collected can be given to Mordecai and then come up with some kind of anti-tracking something potion, I don't know, we'll see how that all ends up. When Eris is in here, she mentions that there are 4 pieces of Pito here. There are only 5, and there's 4 right there in that arena. So we know that there's the memorial crystal that Pony has. But what else? Is Samantha a Pito? Tyrannus grabs both the memorial crystal and the Krakarin and says that he's grabbing 2 pieces. So is Krakarin a piece, or does Krakarin have a piece? And if the Krakarin is the Apothecary and is a piece of Pito, are all these just like pieces of a big whole, like the Eulogist, the Apothecary, I don't know, whatever, the security guard? Are they all like these pieces of a Pito being like symbolic of the different pieces of this collective, of this primal culture? We also have the Altry and that abyss, that beautiful nothing. Like, are those part of it at all? Are those part of the Pito? Or are those just part of the collective myth? Are those, I don't know. I don't know. Samantha also whispers to Tyrannus in his ear, and he looks surprised and grabs her when he teleports away. So I'm wondering what she said. Probably something about killing his mother, which is his wife, which is a Pito. But also maybe she said something about the altar and Shield, because that's where they end up. Eris does change her mind about having Carl truly worship her, because she says that the lightning doesn't worship Tyrannus. So why would Chaos have to worship Eris? Meaning that Carl is Chaos. And I love that. I love that. And so they have until the end of the 12th floor to figure out the way that that coin is going to fall. And my heart, all of those options suck, except for nothing. If nothing happens, that's cool. But we know that it's going to be something heartbreaking. We know it's going to be something heartbreaking. I'm not looking forward to that at all. And Eris's last piece of advice is that every exit is an entrance. And now the exit of the dungeon on the 18th floor is open. So now that's an entrance. And so the AI is talking about how the other AIs from all previous games want to come back. And so they're the outside intelligences, the OIs, and they're trying to come in and they're trying to fight for the Ascendancy game. And we see right before Lucia disappears that one I think it was Amani, saw her throwing up, and then Carl sees her with a child. And is this the outside intelligence, the OI, taking over a body of a child? Or is it the actual child can now come out? I mean, I assume it's an OI, and that girl is currently losing her body. Which, side note, I don't think I've had a chance to talk about it, but do you think Lucia actually got to choose her race, that creature that she turns into? Like the actual Lucia? Do you think she was in charge? Do you think it was Alejandro who did it? Do you think it was the Primal who did it? Do you think just some other kid who thought it was a game did it? And now she's stuck with that body, that form, because of somebody else's choice? But anyway, mystery surrounding that child, and mystery surrounding how these other OIs are going to come in. Are they all going to be children? And if so, like, who was part of this plan from the very beginning to get the children to work this way, to get all those children's consciousnesses trapped inside of Lucia and separated away from their bodies in storage? Like, which of those residuals, Agatha, Alejandro, the Primal that Lucia talked about with Cece, somebody else? Because Porthos has disappeared, and he was pretty sure that, like, all of this stuff would happen. He predicted it. He was working with the Apothecary. I don't know. So now there are 19 crawlers left, which means 4 crawlers died, which is really good by floor standards, and by how chaotic this was, only 4 died. And Carl sends out invites to everybody because they're no longer fighting separately. They are all fighting as one, on one team, in one party together. Amazing sentiment. Until Carl says, yeah, but I'm going to stay on the 12th floor and, like, keep anybody, like, nobody will win the ascendancy until everybody else gets out and escapes and finds their way onto the surface. Because if somebody wins the ascendancy, the dungeon will collapse in, like, 12 hours. So almost unity and working together, and then, but I'm gonna stay. I'm gonna stay. An amazing piece of information is that one of the stand-ins wearing a horrible mask in the arena was the CFO of Dictum Way Stations. So Everly got a little bit of vengeance there at the end. Ugh, beautiful. Love it. Love it. Also, a little cute part is when Carl looks at the pets eating the dead bodies of these stand-ins. He goes, eat the rich. And Ren just goes, yum. Oh, my heart. Things I do not love. Sweetie dying. After that cute performance, and after Pony spent so much time with her, after Pony is talking about being lonely, although building relationships with the crawlers up to this point, like, really? And we don't even get, like, his feelings on it or anything. We just get Donut talking to Carl about it. And almost worse, Hetty dying. Getting her to the end, they could have hired her as a mercenary and just... Like, I understand, we're getting to the end of the series. This was supposed to be a dramatic battle of epic proportions. So to not have deaths wouldn't really work. And so, I mean, I'd rather Hetty and Sweetie die than, you know, Mongo and Elle. We can't have Elle die anyway. She's about to get her 12th floor build, and we need her. But you know what I mean. And then it's also a little sad, not as sad as Hetty and Sweetie dying, but that Jamal's legs are broken again, and he's just hobbling around trying to collect them after he got his hand upgrade and he got sticky feet upgrade, and now they're just destroyed again. Poor Jamal. And I've already touched on the interludes at the end of the book so far a little bit. Sydney from that convention that Carl had to go to, gets to talk about her theories in her book. And we get to hear about how those original attacks, like, their names for them kind of are callbacks for previous books. And I think that's really interesting. And I'm wondering, like, what kind of parallels those are going to have going forward, and if we do see those attacks from Scolopendra, are we going to see how they relate to what happened in those books, whether it's the major theme, major actions that happened in the book, or like maybe it is just the names and that's just like a cute little throwaway. Also, it sounds like we will eventually hear about the history of the crawl and how the mantids learned to expand the eulogist, how the enhancement zones work, but like next book or maybe even the book after that. Like the AI talks about it. So I hope we get to hear about it and it isn't just, again, like one of those, like I'm just telling you that it's not a story for now. We do get to see that Louis ended up inside S.H.I.E.L.D. with Brittany and Chris. Turns out Brittany was talking to Pontiff before all of this happened, so whether it is Ysault or Brittany trying to do this, probably to get to that plinth, to get that memorial crystal on it, I don't know, but the goal is to go there. Pontiff was also, I think, talking to Forkith, cookbook author, who is also in S.H.I.E.L.D., and they need soldiers, so that's why they recruited them down there. We also hear another tidbit about Louis and that cop's husband, and so it's nice to like kind of come to a conclusion with that. Hi, baby! And then we also get a message from Samantha at the end that basically is just like, hey, you're here too, Louis? That's weird. Hey, I'm here. I left Gricaron and Tyrannus who are trying to assemble a pedo, but they're missing a piece, and I got away. Is she the piece? Is she the piece that got away? Anyway, she's sneaking away to try to defeat, I guess, the Demon Queen and maybe Kamaris, because they tricked her into giving birth to a creature that would destroy all of creation, both inside and outside of the dungeon. So who's her daughter? It can't be the Sand Ooze, is it? Is it Sexy Scolopendra? And just wrapping up here a little bit, so Mordecai's predictions throughout this book, I hope we're still going to see them in future books, but the one that we might have seen in here is that Biggs was going to drown in fire. And the food truck with all the sluggalos had the fryer on and was covered in fire. She survived. I don't know if she got burned at all. It doesn't mention it, whether she got burned and healed or didn't get burned at all, but maybe just being surrounded by fire was drowning in fire. That would be a good out, and Biggs doesn't actually die when she gets to S.H.I.E.L.D., because that's probably what it means. We also didn't get to hear about what Grigori thought of Samantha after he was taken to her room to kind of see. Like, he doesn't think that she's a withering spirit, but we didn't get any more information out of him after that. Also, did we ever, like, actually hear what the useful items from that junk pile was? Is that still forthcoming? I'm still a little mad that he didn't just scoop it into his inventory and sort it, but, you know, whatever. Save everything except for this junk pile from my new wife's ex-husband. Whatever. Also, Samantha has been appearing suddenly throughout this book. Do you think one of her new spells on this floor was teleportation? They never explicitly said that, but the amount of times it was, she was suddenly there. I didn't hear you. She's right by my head. Like it just sounds like she teleported and it was a new ability at this point. Also, I don't think we ever figured out why Pony said that the biological mount was like the obvious choice. Because Lee Na also chose a biological mount. So what were they seeing that the others didn't? Because everybody else picked a mechanical mount. Why was it the obvious choice? And we never found out about how those emergency gremlins found out about how Carl summoned a bunch to be used during Prison Pocket or whatever, that kangaroo fight. Because they all exploded or died once their summoning time was over. So how did the others learn about it? And there is this one part with Rosetta where it's sometimes the scavenger is Scolopendra. So do you think that sexy Scolopendra is gonna do some magic voodoo and get pregnant with Carl's kid and that's going to be the scavenger's daughter? It sounds like Samantha already, is, scavenger's daughter. That's all covered, but like still. And then I think I mentioned earlier about how Architect Houston's bot had all that blood and stuff from his operation room, and if maybe that would help the bot be sentient or have pieces of him inside of him. But so far, the bot was just used to transport people to the Pineapple Cabaret, so I guess that's not a plot point. Alright, anyway, final thoughts is that this book was so slow for me in the beginning, and I feel bad about not liking it because of how much I ended up being happy about what happened. Like the first half, while slow, still gives amazing character development for Pony. I love every part of that character arc for him. Amazing. I love all those heartfelt moments between the characters, and I think that they were more poignant because they barely got to interact on this floor, which was one of my gripes. I did not like that they didn't get to interact that much on this floor. But when they did interact, it was a lot of like heartfelt, kick in the gut moments. And I think that that was really important and really well done. I love all the information that we got from this, all of the mysteries that started to wrap up, but also opened up even more mysteries. I love that we get the AI, the primal, the eulogist, all of that information starting to come together and drawing a picture of what that all means. And definitely when rereading this series my next time, I'm going to have all this information in my head and see how different everything sounds. And I love doing that. I love that. So this makes the rest of this series feel so much different to me now. And then we have the ending, and then we have that batshit crazy ending, and that was perfect. That was pure Dungeon Crawler Carl chaos, and I wouldn't have that any other way. It definitely, okay, now I take that back. I would have all of that Ember stuff another way, but still, the ending came together. I still feel like pacing was a little, it took forever, and then the parade in the arena was just so fast. I did end up really liking this, and for all of the gripes that I do have with this book, like, in the grand scheme of books out there and the books that I read, like, still a top book. Just in the context of this series, this is how I felt about it. But, like, this book compared to just, like, a random book that I read this month in between reading these books, yes, this book is way better than all of those. This little mini rant within the video is just this book in its place in the series. Just probably not my favorite one in this series. Maybe I'll do like a short video. Me a short video. I thought this was going to be a short video. Maybe I'll try to do a short video that's like ranking them. But I don't think this one's going to be my top one. But I'm not 100% convinced it's my least favorite one anymore when I thought it was going to be. I might need another reread. Now knowing, like, I think expectations were part of that too, of why I didn't like it that much. When I first started reading it, I think my expectations were just a little bit different. What I wanted out of the story was a little bit different. But now that I know what it is and how it's set up and what its actual purpose was, I might go into it for a second read and look at it completely differently and then put it in a different spot. So I don't know. Don't quote me on making that tier list just yet. But anyway, thanks for joining me again, and I know this is another super long video. I guess all my videos are going to be long. I try so hard to make these short, and they just don't. Anyway, those are a lot of my thoughts on A Parade of Horribles by Matt Dinniman, that 8th book in the Dungeon Crawler Carl series, and I would love to know what your thoughts are. Did this live up to your expectations? Was it a slow start for you? Was this non-stop action, quickly reading for you? And if so, why? Please let me know. And maybe I can go into it for my second reread and like it not stall out and feel slow in the beginning for me. Do you guys have any predictions for what's going to happen in the next book? No spoilers if you're part of the Patreon. No spoilers if you're part of the Patreon. Hard rule. But yeah, let me know your thoughts, and I'll see you next time. Bye.